Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Russian President Vladimir Putin meets US envoy Steve Witkoff 2 days ahead of a sanctions deadline imposed by Trump on Moscow to halt its Ukraine offensive. Switzerland President to meet US Secretary of State in Washington to clinch a deal that would avert a crippling 39% tariff on Swiss imports. Rescue operations in full swing after a cloudburst triggers flash floods in Uttarkhashi district of Uttarakhand. NDRF says over 150 people rescued. Death toll reaches 5. And France battles the largest wildfire of the year that has ravaged 13,000 hectares so far. Blaze not yet under control. Russian President Vladimir Putin met US envoy Steve Witkoff in Moscow on Wednesday, just 2 days ahead of a deadline set by Donald Trump for Russia to halt its Ukraine offensive or face fresh sanctions. Trump, who has claimed that he could end the war within 24 hours if taking office, has given Moscow time until Friday to show concrete steps taken towards peace. 3 rounds of Russia-Ukraine talks in Istanbul have failed to deliver a breakthrough, while Russia has intensified drone and missile strikes, pushing its offensive to new heights. Earlier, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said on Wednesday that improving relations between Russia and the United States will take time. Referring to the prolonged absence of a meeting between President Putin and President Trump, Peskov in his remarks to a news agency said that it takes time for efforts to bring bilateral relations back onto the normal track, but there is inherent delays in this process. Earlier on Tuesday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had a productive call with his US counterpart Donald Trump. Both leaders discussed the Russia-Ukraine conflict, sanctions on Russia, and the finalization of a US-Ukraine drone deal. Taking to social media site X, Zelensky said that President Trump is fully informed about Russian strikes on Kiev and other cities and communities, referring to the intensifying drone and missile attacks in the region. Onto the West Asian crisis now. Egypt's Rafah border crossing witnessed movement on Wednesday as Gaza-bound aid trucks moved through. According to the Palestinian and UN officials, Gaza needs 600 trucks worth of aid per day to survive through, a number previously permitted by Israel before war. Now, amid global outrage over Israel's stringent steps, the country took some measures to ensure more aid flows into Gaza, including the safe passage to aid convoys. The brother of Israeli hostage Evayatar David told the Security Council to use the leverage to secure the immediate unconditional release of the remaining hostages and to ensure humanitarian aid reaches them. David Evayatar was shown appearing emaciated in a video released by Hamas last week. Showing the video of his brother, he said he was a living skeleton, barely the strength to move or speak, his voice barely unrecognizable.
The last video also exposed another horrifying truth. As my younger brother, a living skeleton, was forced to speak and dig his future grave, you can see the chubby and well-fed hand of Hamas terrorists enter into the frame. We must ensure that all hostages are being released immediately and unconditionally. We don't have more time. They don't have more time. And every minute counts.
During a visit to Latvia, Israeli President Isaac Herzog called on the international community to present a unanimous, tough position to not talk to Hamas until they release the hostages held in Gaza.
I call upon the international community from Riga for a change. How about presenting a unanimous, tough position, including Europe, and saying to Hamas and its allies, we're not talking to you until you release the hostages.
Swiss President Karin Keller-Sutter is set to meet U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Washington on Wednesday as both sides scramble to strike a deal that could avert a crippling 39% tariff on Swiss imports. The Trump administration's surprise move last week to impose the steep rate has shocked Switzerland, threatening serious damage to its export-driven economy. Keller-Sutter and Business Minister Guy Parmelin arrived in Washington on Tuesday for urgent talks with the U.S., reportedly pushing for increased Swiss purchases of American energy and defense products as part of a potential compromise deal. Now, the trial against a former aide to a European Parliament lawmaker begins this week. The aide is accused of spying for China while working for a member of Germany's far-right Alternative for Germany, AfD party. The aide was a former assistant to a politician for the opposition far-right AfD. The trial began in a German court on Tuesday. The defendant, identified as German national Jian Ji, in line with German privacy rules, is suspected of having worked for a Chinese intelligence service since 2002. And for more on the story and on those who are at the center of this case and what this trial means for Germany, let's go live to Deutsche Welle's Emily Leshner reporting from Berlin now. Hi, Emily. Tell us about the aide and what they are being charged with.
Hi, yes, the aide is a man named Jian Ji. He's a German-Chinese dual citizen who was working for a somewhat controversial member of the AfD party here in Germany named Maximilian Krah. And he was working for Maximilian Krah from 2019 until his arrest last year. And Jian is being accused of handing over hundreds of documents to Chinese intelligence agencies, documents that detailed the deliberations and the decisions of EU Parliament while he was working for Krah out of a Brussels office. He also allegedly spied on Chinese dissidents and opposition figures and reportedly had compiled dossiers on AfD party leaders Alice Weidel and Tino Trupala. And according to some local media reports, it seems that lawmakers had reservations about him even before he was arrested, that some had reportedly tried to steer clear of him at work. And he was arrested right before the European elections last year. He's been in detention since while waiting for his trial to begin, which, as you mentioned, begins this week. And prosecutors believe he'd been working as a covert agent for China since 2002, though he had been working for the AfD parliamentarian Maximilian Krah since 2019.
Okay, also tell us, Emily, what has been the response from the AfD lawmaker he worked for?
Well, Maximilian Krah has denied collaborating with Jian or with Chinese intelligence officials, and that is something he has been questioned about. The Dresden Public Prosecutor's Office, which is also trying the case against Jian, Krah's aide, they're also investigating Krah for allegedly accepting around 50,000 euro from companies that were connected to Jian. So, of course, their relationship is coming under close scrutiny. They reportedly met in 2015 when Krah was a lawyer and Jian was one of his clients. And then when Krah began serving in the European Parliament as a representative of the AfD party, he hired Jian for what he says was the aide's expertise in trade and logistics and language skills. So Krah has now kind of distanced himself from Jian, but they do have a relationship that goes back a number of years. Krah has been asked if Jian ever tried to recruit him to spy for China, but he has emphatically denied this, although Krah will be a witness at Jian's trial and is expected to speak on September 3rd.
Okay, we saw during Germany's election that there has been increasing support for the AfD, but there is also a lot of controversy surrounding the party. So what impact could this trial have on AfD's standing in German society?
That's right. During the election, we did see an uptick in support for this right-wing party. And it's important to remember that the AfD is formally considered a far-right organization by the German authorities. And it is always looking for a foothold that will lend it legitimacy and more influence over German politics and daily life. So a scandal like this one, it wouldn't be good for any party. But for the AfD, which is trying to really gain this foothold, it doesn't look good at all, and especially not for its leader, Alice Weidel, who has been criticized for not being able to get this situation under control. And the AfD party was also criticized for letting Krah continue in his role as a parliamentarian representative even after his aide was charged and some of the allegations around Krah's own dealings started to come to light. And Krah and John are not the only ones, I just want to mention, that have been caught up in this scandal. Investigators also charged an accomplice of John, a woman named Jackie X, who was working at an airport here in Germany, in Leipzig, and who investigators say was giving John information about flights, cargo, passengers, including information about the transportation of military equipment and people linked to a German arms company. So this case is a serious one, and it is not going to be easy for the AfD to entangle itself from this. The AfD also recently lost an appeal not to be considered a far-right organization. They lost that appeal. So there might be some growing support within the party, or you might have seen that during the last election. But their problems are certainly mounting, and this is going to make it very difficult for the AfD.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily. Emily reporting from DW Berlin. Firefighters in southern France struggled on Wednesday to control a massive wildfire as the blaze spread rapidly through forests and villages, forcing residents and tourists to flee. Claimed to be one of the largest wildfires in years, the blaze has burnt 13,000 hectares of land and burnt down at least 25 houses so far, progressing extremely fast. The fire has forced closure of many roads. One person has been reported dead in the village of Laura de la Cabrices, about 30 kilometers from the city of Perpignan. Nearly 2,000 firefighters have been mobilized to combat the flames, adding through that the weather conditions with strong winds, low humidity and high temperatures are making it difficult to tame the fires. On to China now. Rescuers rushed to save stranded citizens in the southern part of Guangdong as streets got flooded due to heavy rains brought by East Asian monsoon. Heavy downpour triggered flash floods in many areas, destroying roads, downing cables, along with mudslides and fallen trees across several cities. In Huidong, firefighting emergency teams used rubber boats to evacuate 25 people trapped in flood waters. Emergency teams also rescued people trapped in cars and other vehicles submerged in the flooded streets in Changmutao County. The 80th anniversary of the atomic bombing in the Japanese town of Hiroshima is being observed today. About 55,000 participants, including international guests from a record 120 countries and regions, observed a moment of silence at 8:15 a.m. local time, the exact time when the uranium bomb was dropped on the Hiroshima by the United States. The day, a poignant reminder of what war brings with it. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. New Delhi gets a key landmark under the Central Vista redevelopment project in Kartavya Bhavan 3. Reserve Bank of India keeps the policy repo rate unchanged at 5.5%, maintains GDP growth projection at 6.5% for fiscal year 2026. And Britain's advertising regulator bans Zara ads over its portrayal of unhealthily thin models.
This week on Defense Dynamics, we analyze India's leap into new age of warfare, where victory demands precision in the skies and protection in cyberspace. We decode one of India's battlefield game changers, the guided Pinaka rocket system. What is Rudram 3 and why its integration with Su-30 MKI a game-changing boost to India's air power. And finally, we also break down the Sukhoi Super upgrade. How will it redefine India's frontline fighters? Catch it all on Defense Dynamics this Wednesday at 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Tanvi Taneja. In a significant milestone towards reshaping India's administrative capital, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday dedicated the Kartavya Bhavan 3 to the nation, calling it a symbol of unwavering resolve and continuous efforts towards public service. PM Modi stated that the Bhavan is an example of state-of-the-art infrastructure and added that it will not only increase policy delivery efficiency, but will also provide a new momentum to the country's development. The Prime Minister also said that the Bhavan reflects India's commitment to building a developed and self-reliant India. A key landmark under the ambitious Central Vista redevelopment project, it is located at the heart of New Delhi. This modern and eco-friendly office complex will now house major ministries like Home Affairs, External Affairs and Rural Development, bringing them under one roof for smarter, seamless governance. Spread across 1.5 lakh square meters, the Bhavan is designed with sustainability at its core, promising 30% energy savings and generating over 5 lakh units of electricity annually. Prime Minister Modi interacted with the workers who contributed in building the Kartavya Bhavan and said that the nation has witnessed the tireless hard work and determination of our Shram Yogis who have shaped the complex. Prime Minister Modi also planted a sapling at the courtyard outside the Bhavan. Prime Minister noted that the building has been developed with full attention given to environmental protection. On to India's north now. The Indian Army has intensified rescue and relief operations in Dharali district in northern India, the state of Uttarakhand, where a cloudburst wreaked havoc, sweeping away homes, shops and roads on Tuesday. In the affected region, the Army has launched a swift and coordinated humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operation. Over 225 Army personnel are on the ground for search, rescue and relief work. Search and rescue dogs are deployed at Harshil village and 3 civil helicopters have landed in coordination with the SDRF for casualty evacuation and relief material delivery. The Indian Army has deployed its Mi-17 and Chinook helicopters to look for the stranded. The Army has confirmed the evacuation of 70 people safely, but over 50 people are still reportedly missing, including 1 junior commissioned officer and 8 soldiers. The key road stretches near Barthwadi, Linchigad and Gangrani have been washed away, severely affecting movement. So there has been a significant loss due to the cloudburst in Dharali district of Uttarakhand, and as we told you, rescue operations are going on to save the people still trapped. DD India's Renu Upreti had a special conversation with Defence PRO Lieutenant Colonel Manish Srivastav about how the army is taking action amid the challenging terrain.
At this time, we are present with the Defense PRO, Lieutenant Colonel Manish Sharvastav. Let's talk to him about the disaster in Uttarkhashi, Dharali. So, sir, what is the latest information and how being the rescue carried about?
So, as you are aware, yesterday afternoon, this eventuality happened at around 2 o'clock. Within 15 minutes, the Indian Army column of 150 people had reached the accident site and they had started the search and rescue operations. Since then, for 24 hours now, the search and rescue operation is still going on. And what the Indian Army has made an effort that all the people who had survived the floods, they have been taken to higher reaches and they have been taken to safe places. And in addition to that, there are some people who were caught in mud. There are around 20 people, they have been rescued. Besides that, there are army doctors also at the site, and they are treating anybody who requires some treatment, anybody who's injured, so they are treating them also. Besides that, Indian Army has also made a requisition for tracker dogs. They have started using drones to locate people if there is any survivors there to rescue them. Besides that, they are also trying to get the engineer equipment on site so that the speed of the rescue operations can be increased. Besides that, there are some people, some coordination which has been carried out with BRO for engineering equipment. There are some inherent engineering equipment with the army also. But since the roads have been washed away, the reaching of these places are becoming a little difficult.
Sir, also yesterday some army soldiers reported missing in this disaster. So how are being they rescued?
Yes, this was an unfortunate incident that happened that one of the army camps got caught in the flood, and yesterday there was a news of 11 soldiers who were missing, and later on we could recover 2 people safely. Now we are also continuing this rescue operation. The same column is actually divided into 2 now. The other column is also looking for our missing people also.
So I Renu Priti with camera person Vikas versus DD India, Dehradun.
Members of Parliament from Uttarakhand met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday regarding the terrible disaster in Dharali, Uttarkhashi. The Prime Minister expressed grief and distress over the disaster and said that he is constantly reviewing the relief and rescue work. PM Modi assured them that all the agencies of the central government and the state government are engaged in rehabilitation work with full strength. He also said that the central government stands with all the disaster-affected people. Also, the central government is helping Uttarakhand in every way to fight and come out of this disaster. Prime Minister Modi advised all MPs to stay in touch with the people living in the heavy rain and landslide affected areas of their constituency and provide them with every possible help. Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Modi also spoke to Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami and took stock of the situation. Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami earlier on Wednesday visited the disaster-hit Dharali region of Uttarkhashi to oversee relief and rescue work. He inspected the cloudburst and mudslide-affected area where houses and other buildings were damaged. He also met families affected by the disaster and reviewed the ongoing relief and rescue work. The Chief Minister also noted that several roads connecting the region have been heavily impacted and said that the administration is working to restore facilities in the area. India's Monetary Policy Committee kept the policy repo rate unchanged at 5.5% and the neutral stance to continue. The MPC statement was delivered by Reserve Bank of India Governor Sanjay Malhotra on Wednesday. The real GDP growth for 2025-26 is projected at 6.5%, while the real GDP growth for the next quarter is projected at 6.6%. RBI has been monitoring macroeconomic conditions and will continue to take efforts for economic growth to be on track.
We will continue to monitor our macroeconomic conditions on a policy-to-policy basis and accordingly take a call. So it's all, very, very uncertain. We already did 100 basis point rate cut. The other thing is that monetary policy transmission is still happening. So we will continue we'll continue to do whatever is required to facilitate good growth while of course maintaining price stability.
Sri Lanka's former State Minister Shashindra Rajapaksa was arrested on Wednesday morning by the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption at his residence in Colombo. The arrest is linked to a controversial compensation claim for a building damaged during the island-wide protests on May 9, 2022. The property, located on government land, had reportedly been constructed illegally. Authorities stated that compensation was initially denied after it was confirmed that the land belonged to the state. However, Rajapaksa is accused of using his official position to pressure damage assessment officials into fraudulently awarding compensation. He also is alleged to have misused government property and conspired to commit acts of corruption. And next we take a look at what else is making news around the world. Poland's newly sworn-in president, Karol Nawrocki, on Wednesday vowed to amend the country's constitution to safeguard national sovereignty. In a fiery address to Parliament following his inauguration, Nawrocki signalled a looming showdown with the government over democratic standards, setting the stage for a potential constitutional clash in the months ahead. The Advertising Standards Agency of Britain has banned 2 advertisements of Spanish clothing brand Zara. The agency said that it took action after receiving complaints about both these ads featured on Zara's website in May for its portrayal of unhealthily thin models. Zara later took down the disputed ads from its website. And Australia's Great Barrier Reef has suffered its most extensive coral bleaching on record, with ocean heat waves in 2024 triggering catastrophic damage, according to the Australian Institute of Marine Science. Scientists blame climate-driven heat stress, urging prompt emission cuts to halt accelerating reef decline. So that's it in this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates from India and the world on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.